Hey guys, what's up and welcome to another episode of the TheGoodCastShow. Now, in recent times, our education system has been connected more with bullying, suicide, as well as child sexual abuse content that is now even being discussed in Parliament. The safe havens that schools were for us a long time ago seem not to be so safe for the kids of the future. So what's really happening in our schools? In recent publications, we've heard of cover-ups at the highest levels. So is it really a safe place for our children, a safe haven for them to get the education that they need for our future? To answer that question, my guest today, he is a public health medicine specialist with more than 17 years of experience in Malaysia's healthcare sector. In 2017, he founded SW Care Group. Now, alongside his role as an entrepreneur and academician, he has dedicated much of his research and advocacy to addressing bullying among school children. He's published numerous scientific papers on the subject, authored the book Bully Cyber Suatu Bencana Sosial, and shared his expertise at both national and international conferences. Now, I'm not done. He's won awards including Best Scientific Paper and Best Oral Presenter on Bullying Research and was appointed as the chairman of the Penang State Anti-Bullying Committee. So it's my honor and privilege to host my guest today. Please welcome Professor Dr. S. Vikneswaran. Prof, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Vinod. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for doing this, and it's a real honor to have you. Firstly, congrats. It always fills me with joy to see a fellow Indian doing so well in his life. So well done to you, sir.
Thank you.
Prof, let's start with this. Why did you contribute your life? Why did you dedicate your life to the topic of bullying?
Very important question, Vinod, when you ask this. Looking at the landscape of the current school system, so I was born in 82, so there are different generations, they are named. So I came through the system where it has been created. My parents are teachers. So what I realized is, there was always one-sided where teachers are always right. So we were probably not allowed to express too much of what's happening in school. Probably those are the things that, are used to toughen us up, to make us more disciplined and all that. But along the way, once I was into the secondary school, I realized that certain things which were happening at that particular time, the actualization came in that these are wrong actually. This is not the way the message has to be sent to us in order for us to actually to be disciplined.
Okay.
I realized that we should be actually groomed in a different approach. Okay, there should be ways for us to be toughened up, but that was not supposed to be the way. The second part was when I was actually undergoing certain experience related to bullying. What I realized was even those perpetrators who were bullying us, they didn't know how severe this thing can actually take place. You know, how the repercussion of it. They were unsure.
So you were bullied yourself?
Yes, I was bullied myself.
Okay.
But probably what I would say is most of us would have actually experienced this during our school time. But the perpetrator themselves, they were unaware of how serious this could be. And it was practically probably a tradition which they carry forward. Because
Tradition from
previous generations, seniors.
Oh, I see. Yeah. From their parents or their uncles or
maybe
whatever.
Let's say in a school environment, there's always look up to someone.
Okay.
And this practice has been like, did you do this? Did you do that? Oh no, you are weak. You should be undergoing this so that you'll be tougher in future. So this was the one who was going on. But what I realized was along the way there were quite a number of my friends were injured and all these things went on, which I realized that. Another gap which I found out, we didn't have the right channel to convey those messages, which means that where do we channel this? But I'm not saying that these schools are not being attentive to us. There are, but there were many limitations whereby there were many supportive teachers who were protecting us, the victims and all that. But what happened was, we have to understand that in a school environment, once you are known to be, complaining about bullying or someone who has bullied you, you will be categorized as a weaker group of person and you'll be stigmatized even further. So some of the students sometimes, I think I can say most of them, will not want to actually express this, being feared to be stigmatized further along the way while they are studying as a teenager in school, in secondary school.
Is it a case that the schools are covering up?
I don't deny, maybe, because, probably the system is there in such a way that, let's say, more and more schools being transparent in their approach to address this, probably they might lose out in certain locations or anything. I'm not sure. Yeah. But what happens is now, the reporting system to protect those victims who are coming out to express their dissatisfactions or their suffering, probably they are not convinced enough whether can it be held private and confidential. Yeah, that was one of the limitations that I faced while being a student. Okay. So that made me to actually, although I'm a practicing medical doctor, that I wanted to go deeper into this. And my aim was, you see, the data is already there. Every year there are published data. The whole system, how many % are victims, and a lot of data are there. How many of them are suffering from mental illness? But the point that I wanted to address is, what do we do next? We should be going into interventions.
But before we get to that, Doctor, I think, Prof, it'll really help us if you could sort of consolidate this data that's out there about bullying. Okay, let's look at the bullying. I want to understand just how bad it is.
Yeah.
So how bad is this situation?
Okay. Now, of course, for us to understand this, we need to understand the structure of bullying itself. Okay, structure of bullying. So, bullying practice it's quite complex because it involves different categories.
Okay.
That's the first thing that we need to understand, different categories, and there is a definition by itself for bullying. So,
you
what
mean
is
like
bullying?
cyberbullying and all that? Those are different.
Those are categories.
Okay.
But the definitions, the definition itself, you need to know, bullying, there are few components involved, which means there is a repeated repeated action by the perpetrator harming a victim. That is the first one. So that's a repeated action. Number two, there's always imbalance of power, which means it's not both at an equal stand. One person is always at a lower power, probably in the social hierarchy or something. Yeah, lower power. And then number three is it happens for a period of time with the intention of they want to harm them. So you see, these are the definition of bullying by itself. So when you focus on this, of course, there are 4 types of bullying. But more than that, you need to understand when a bullying occurs. You see, example, I put it an example. When a video gets viral, someone is being whacked by a group of seniors and all that. So now, there are 4 groups are involved. First, the perpetrator. Next is the victim. Third is the bystander who's watching. And fourth is those who are there, sometimes they call as the supporters. They encourage the bullying practice to happen. So why I divide this into 4 categories, that was the additional strength which I had in my research, because every 4 categories, all these 4 categories who are involved in that particular bullying repeatedly has a significant clinical effect in the future, which means that it will definitely affect them psychologically.
Okay.
Not only the victim. So that's why rather than we classify that how bad is bullying and all this, okay, because for us to benchmark that, we need to see that there's 4 categories. So we need to divide them accordingly to see that what are the percentages of that, and eventually how many of them are involved. So based on this, the available data now, they divide according to percentage of victim. Probably national average is around 17 to 18% under National Health Mobility Survey. Then percentage of perpetrators, 23%. There is mixed involvement. Those who became a victim before and now perpetrating, or vice versa. And there's no non-involvement. But what happened is when I categorize this, nearly 78.1% of them are involved somehow in bullying, regardless of this category.
When you say 78.1 of what? Of the student body?
Yes, the students. From the research which I've done, which is published.
That's crazy.
Yeah, which is published. And
this is students from what level?
Malaysian secondary schools.
78.1% of students are involved in bullying.
In bullying, which means
they are one of the 4 stakeholders, nah?
One of the yes.
I don't know whether you can use that term, but yeah.
Yes. So which means what I'm trying to say that is somehow directly or indirectly they are involved. So why I'm saying that this is alarming, because the literatures have proven that each one of this category of students who in different part of the system of bullying, they will definitely face certain different level of clinical outcomes in future, psychological outcomes. Example like, they can get into substance abuse, domestic violence, they get into domestic violence, crime, many. There will be lack of, poor academic performances. So it goes on. So now, why do we say this? I have to state this out is, when such is the degree of involvement, and this was done only for secondary school students, 13 to 17 years old. So when this is done, now, are we going to allow this to continue at this level?
That is the question, yeah.
Yeah, that is the question. So now, what I see is now in the, whatever the data that we are speaking now, for me, based on this, I realize that it's very alarming.
It is.
It is very alarming.
But before we go further, your study was based on Malaysian secondary schools.
Yes.
What about primary schools? What about boarding schools? What about university? Is it different or is it the same?
It depends. Why? Because the 4 types of bullying: verbal, physical, relational bullying, cyberbullying. It exists in every aspect, different academic institutions. It's just that now, for us to harvest those data, there are many limitations for us to access those data. But when we see in secondary school, there's already such data, which means that probably these are carried forward from primary. And after secondary, they are going into higher education institutions. So definitely this repercussion will be faced there. And eventually it goes on into your work life. So I believe definitely there is a relation to this into workplace bullying, and it moves on.
Based on your study, have things gotten worse since the generations of before? Since your generation, has it gotten worse, or was it always there, just that now with social media we actually see it?
Okay. Now, to answer that question, rather than saying worsen, it became more complex. Why? Probably initially it was more to the traditional type of bullying: verbal, physical, relational bullying, indirect bullying. But with the existence of cyber media now, social media and all that, cyberbullying is highly prevalent. It's much more dangerous. It's difficult to control. On top of the level of cyber literacy among our kids are still poor, which means that cyber literacy in terms of how do you safely use social media, are they groomed? Are there any education on that? I believe not many is there, unless there are certain own initiatives and all that. So the cyber literacy knowledge is poor. So it became more complex, because when a verbal bullying happens, it's one person to another person, supported by few. But cyberbullying, we see in social media, we have cases of those who are actually committing suicide out of cyberbullying, being bullied cyber. But you see, one individual are attacked using the social medium, thousands of people who are unknown with fake identities and all this. So
how do you catch them? That's how do you identify them?
Yes, it becomes more complex.
Even in that case, let's just go back a bit, because you mentioned 4 different groups.
Yes.
Right? But there seems to be one group that you didn't mention, which is the institution itself.
Yeah.
What is their role in this?
Okay. Institution in this. Okay. Now, regardless, I'm not protecting any particular part, but the main, the main thing that I realize is now, understanding bullying, the awareness of it, the intensity of awareness of bullying, it's quite low among our society, regardless of in any part of institutions, whether in the family institutions itself, or educational institution, or they are moving into a working institutions. What is it bullying? How bad it can be? How do you overcome this? Have we ever spoken to our children, understanding this whole concept of bullying? Have we ever, because why? When we speak to them, or there is a mechanism for them to actually voice out or to report, that's where we create an indirect surveillance system to monitor behavioral monitoring. Because when you don't have a surveillance system, how do you know that what is the intensity of cases which is occurring? Because in medical aspects, public health point of view, when you have communicable disease, those infectious disease, there is a surveillance system in place. When you come, certain diseases are being diagnosed, mandatory under CDC Act 1988, you need to report. So this data goes to the district health department, and eventually they monitor. When it goes exceed the threshold, then there is an intervention for it to go down. You see, so that system is there. But now, as you see, the bullying practice is becoming more complex and complex. People are voicing out. The occurrence for us, probably the media, social media is there, so it's more intense. But are there any surveillance system to monitor the incident rate of these cases? What are the types of cases are prevalent? And we can divide this into different socioeconomic background. How does urban students bully? How does rural students bully? So it differs.
When I hear you speak, and I've read your papers, unfortunately I've not read your book yet, but I've read your papers. You take a very academic research approach to bullying,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
But I feel that it should be two-pronged. There should be a data-centric approach on one end, and on the other end, there has to be very strong repercussion towards institutions and people who are involved in bullying. So, in your opinion, are there strong enough repercussions to hinder people or to basically deter people in the future to become bullies or to take part in bullying?
Now, to say that it happens only when there are highly reported cases are going on, which means that when the case comes up, example, in 2017, 2018, there were a few deaths in Penang. I don't want to mention the name.
I know. Yeah.
So when that happened, there was a national outcry about this, and everyone was talking about it, and we could see that eventually the sentiment was much more stronger. The awareness was there. However, it just weaned off. So what happens is now, when the current cases are coming up again, the whole emotion of going against bullying is coming up again. So now, why this is happening? Because for me, in my opinion, I don't want to actually, criticize anyone. You see, preventions has to be divided into three.
Okay.
Primary prevention, secondary prevention, tertiary preventions. So the primary prevention is the core, prevention at the community level. So one of the main component of primary prevention is awareness. How much awareness are we creating? How much of awareness are we creating? Among family institutions, how many parents actually know what is bullying? So how do we create this in family institutions, in a community that we live together, in the school environment? So this is example one of it. Example like, probably in a month where they declare a anti-bullying week, 5 minutes of every syllabus, before beginning of every syllabus, just a definition of bullying. Something is being read.
But is that just theatre, Prof? Because I'll give you an example. I recently went to a school, right, for my child, and in an interview, the first thing they did was show me a picture of a child with the cheek was slit, with a slit cheek. Right? It was a scrape or a cut, and they asked me what will I do if this happened to my child. From the discussion, it seemed very clear that the ideal answer they were looking for was I wouldn't do much about it. Okay? When I came back, I was very disturbed by this, right? So when I think about it, is it that the Ministry of Education, even at the state level, at the municipal level, at the district level or whatever, don't have a strong enough hold of the schools in Malaysia, whether private or government, to actually force them to follow certain protocols and to enact certain punishments to stop this?
But to answer that, the protocols are there. It's very clear.
But there's no enforcement.
Yes. Which means that...
And if there's no enforcement, then who is to be blamed?
Exactly. So now, blaming this because it's multi-sectorial. But what I'm trying to say is now, every school under the jurisdiction of Ministry of Education or there are example like public schools. There are certain police, those district police stations and all that. The officers are actually entrusted to take care of certain schools. There should be frequent communications of discussing what are the cases happening and all these things, what type of cases and all that. And eventually the police are able to actually relate the schools with the current crime scenario of that particular area. You see, so now this kind of frequent communications are important, which means frequent engagement with authorities. So when such ecosystem is already present, but if this is still happening, which means that there is the monitoring mechanism by higher authorities probably needs to be further enforced. Why? Because we are blaming school covering up. Yes, that is one. Of course, the instance that you have faced. But now, the thing is, what I understand is now, even the school face such situations, I believe they might be confused what's next. How do we rehabilitate? Because now, these are done by two young kids. The victims are young kids. The perpetrator also is another younger guy. So, are we going to be, punishing that person? Or are we going to focus on rehabilitating? Let's say if this thing happened, the person who has committed the offense, bullying others, the perpetrator, how are we going to rehabilitate this person? Are there any avenue for this person to be referred? Are the school counsellors are confident enough to handle such cases, to gather students which is so-called problematic or in a high-risk group? Are they can they be actually proactive enough to rehabilitate them? Because at the end of the day, they are still kids. So I'm not I'm not saying that I'm supporting this act, but you see, these are the systems which has to be further enforced so that the environment is supportive enough to actually further move on this. Because example, a drug addict's been caught.
But you say that it's for the schools to communicate with the a two-way communication between
Yes.
the authorities and the schools, right?
Yes.
But then it also brings another question: why would a school do that? Because there is a commercial sense that they want to protect.
Exactly. That's where it comes to the in terms of how much the school administrators would want to be transparent on that, because they have certain personal agendas maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
But I have seen school who are proactive enough to acknowledge this, and let's get this moving further, because we are not only looking at bullying. They might encounter issues related to sexual reproductive health, teenage pregnancies, or drug abuse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you see, the issues are quite complex, but there are schools who are being transparent enough. And Ministry of Education, they have data of which are the certain schools which is called as zone, red zones and all that, which more emphasizations are actually being put into that. But what I realize, as this goes on, right, even when a case comes out of it, the social media is uncontrollable. Even before things can be actually, understood on what actually happened, the opinions which is being given and all that makes that matter more complex. Yeah. So it becomes difficult even for the stakeholders also to actually control this. But probably in my perspective.
So, in your opinion, then, moving forward from this, how do we stop bullying? I know there are other issues, as you mentioned, teenage pregnancies and all that, rape and all, but I think that let's put those aside, because bullying let's just focus on bullying for now. But how do we stop this? Because I have seen now many videos that go viral of, groups of kids, just ganging up on one or two kids. It's mob mentality taking over. And my concern is, as a parent, for those 6 hours or how many hours I send my child to school, I am entrusting my child's well-being to that institution. They are the temporary guardians at that point. What should be done to ensure that my child will be safe?
Exactly. So now, this is very important, whereby that's what was my outcome of my thesis on bullying. Okay. We need to have an institutionalized commitment, which means a system to combat this, whereby, you see, bullying is a behavioral practice. You see, so you can't control behavior. It happens, and it fluctuates at certain period due to external factors and all that. So this thing has to be like, first, understanding every schools has different characteristic of bullying. Certain schools might have physical bullying quite predominant. Certain schools might have relational bullying, especially those predominantly female. Relational bullyings are quite predominant in those kind of categories among females. So some schools might have highly prevalent cyberbullying. Now, so based on this now, first is we need to understand what type of issue is actually the school is facing, which means that first we have to profile all the schools, which means profiling the school, understanding the characteristic of bullying in every institution.
Does it differ?
Yes.
How so?
Because in terms of the type of interventions, example like, let's say when we have, cyberbullying is quite predominant, okay? There should be an initiatives of, at least, rather than educating the whole school, maybe, there should be a pilot projects of, in the school itself, to actually groom certain cyber ambassadors, teaching them in terms of how do you safely use internets. If you face any condemnation or any bullying, how do you respond? How do you block pages? How do you report? So why is this important is, once we train these ambassadors among the friends, peers, and then they can disseminate these informations among their colleagues. So this is how different types of bullying, there are different interventions to look on. The second thing is now empowering. Remember I told you bystanders, right? You see, when a video goes viral, who is actually viraling the video? The fellow who took the video, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Rather than spending that 2 minutes of taking the video, why not he just runs to the school and get help or someone, because it's happening. Okay.
But just on that point, before you move to the next point, I think that is very highly impossible, because
understand.
As a person who is recording such a thing, I guarantee you what's going through their mind is this is going to get the views.
Exactly.
And we live in that dopamine addictive cycle now, right?
Yeah.
So again, I come back to this point. For you to empower or educate this person who is living in the modern world where he's dopamine addict, he wants the views, the likes, the shares, the virality, right? He doesn't care what's going on in front of him, okay?
Sure.
If without enforcement in the most barbaric, if you will, ways, that would save more lives, right?
Exactly. And I agree to that. Yeah. But that is a short-term goal. Like I was mentioning before this. Now, when there's different types of interventions, right? What I see is now, there are programs, I don't deny. People are conducting programs. School, ministries, NGOs, they are conducting programs. But what happens is now, are we monitoring what is the outcome of the program? Because
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. The objective of the program is for you to make sure that they don't bully, or they stop, or they understand what is happening, and then they don't do that. So what happens is now, let's say, okay, they understand the bullying is quite predominant here. You come and, for a few days or 2 days of camps, and you talk to them about all this bullying and everything goes on. Eventually, there is no any surveillance or monitoring of effectiveness of the program that you have done. Okay. How do you actually verify whether your intervention is getting better or not? Because when you intervene, there should be a post-intervention assessment. There should be a pre-intervention assessment whereby to understand the gravity of the bullying in every institution. And subsequently, we can actually cater into how do we intervene. So there should be a plan of intervention. But once this intervention is done, you need to assess the outcome of the interventions so that it enables us that whether this strategy is working right or not. If not, let's improvise it further. How? So this is how eventually we can get into the root cause of reducing the incidents or stop. Because we don't have post-intervention evaluations. It's a one-off programs.
But that is a long term. I wouldn't say long term, but it's more of it takes longer time to basically measure the success because you have to see the program through.
Correct, but
what's an immediate solution now? Considering the severity?
Exactly. What I'm trying to say is now, with that will that of a long-term program is going to be done. What happens is now this will activate all those stakeholders to be actually focused into this, which means we will have a short-term interventions. Example like I said, awareness programs, a reporting system whereby every school will understand the report in their own bullying practice differently. Why? Because example, when does bullying happen? Bullying happens when these two perpetrator or victim, there is more time spent together. Unfortunately, it happens in boarding schools because they are always facing each other. In normal public schools or they are at home. So cyberbullying takes place at that time. Okay, that's different. But when there is more when they are face to face for a longer period, it encourages more bullying to happen because that is the norm. So now, when there is an environment where students are frequently meeting for a longer period and all that, what are the things are in place to support them? Are there any reporting system to support them or empowering bystanders? The moment that you see this, who do you call? I saw there was once last year some innovation competition by Ministry of Education. The brother was, I think he was standard 6. He always worried because the sister was always bullied. So he created a bell which is connects to the staff room, teachers room. So the moment anyone feels that they are bullied and all that, they just need to ring that.
That's a very good invention.
Yeah, you just need to ring that so that it will activate the staff room, teachers room, so they will come to help. So you see, these are the immediate interventions.
But that's an interesting point because if you peel back that invention, it basically shows that invention provides a voice for the victim.
Exactly.
Which earlier on you say that even you did not have that voice because you felt that you would be stereotyped, you will be pushed to a corner, etc.
Yes.
Right? So when we talk about at the policy level, shouldn't there be certain, you may call it a whistleblower acts that are done specifically to allow for students an avenue where they can anonymously or secretly report these things without consequence?
Definitely there is. I mean,
there is.
Yeah, there is. It should be, but there is. Example like when initial cases were out, if I'm not mistaken, 1515 by welfare departments, those hotline numbers and all that, where you can call and talk to them, informing them that such things are happening and you are being victimized and all that. So there is a mechanism on how you get through. Or reporting system, let's say you are cyberbullied. There's a way to report through MCMC, and eventually that report can be taken to the police for interventions. But now, these are the things, when they are actually reporting this, they are already being a victim for a period of time, because bullying is a repeated act. They are undergoing a very intense situation at the time. So now, when the intense situation is there, don't you think that there should be someone who are much more matured, adults or all those, supporting this person to actually come out?
Since you bring that up, there was that case, I don't want to mention the name, but there was that case where that boy, I think, was tortured, right? He and his torturers were able to go to class and all that, while this boy was suffering in his room, in the room, locked and chained, and finally died. He was being abused.
Exactly.
This does not sound to me like the work of this is not a silly prank. This is done by sociopaths.
Exactly.
Right? In such a case, shouldn't we have laws that punish the teachers for negligence, for not taking a more serious step to find, hey, where is this boy? Those things should be there, right?
On my opinion, that should be, to a certain extent, in terms of how do we execute this law. That is very important, because it differs according to scenarios. There are bullying victims who took that as a challenge and they came up in life. Example like the fighter, what's his name? Agilan.
Yes, Agilan. Yeah, the MMA fighter.
MMA fighter.
Yeah.
Look how he actually transformed himself. Being an obese person in school, obese is naturally a category of group of people who's always been frequently bullied. Yeah. And he took that. I don't know what are the others, because I read through and I follow his progress and all that. He has transformed that, whatever that he has gone through, positively to transform himself.
But that's a different story, Prof, because that's talking about maybe a case of bullying, yes, but he walked out alive.
Yes.
The ones who don't walk out alive, they die. What's the solution there? Who should pay the price?
Now, to pay the price I could start from the family itself. It should start from the family itself, because there are certain cases of death previously in 2017, maybe in the state of northern states and all that. The story was very clear. He has been bullied since Form 1 until Form 5. And
in a boarding school,
in a normal public secondary school, and eventually, he tried saying this to people, reporting it to teachers and all that, but it became like this is something to toughen up, or there was no any emphasization was given. But what ended up after that was he eventually died after Form 5, being bullied.
How?
Because he was tortured after school.
Wow.
So, if this thing happens this way, now, what I'm trying to say is now, for us to blame, who do we blame? Because he has gone through this, he has tried his best to tell. Let's say even if he does not say it out, there would have been a place where someone should have asked him, it goes on like that. So now, who do we blame? So, for me, being an advocate of public health, what I believe is, rather than punishing, of course, the law is there. Rather than punishing, we have to be very firm in terms of making sure the right available system are in place, which is able to actually cater the current complexity of issues. Then,
by system, you mean it must be a monitoring system?
There should be a monitoring system. There should be inclusive of reporting system. And when you monitor, of course, you're collecting data, right? There should be data should be actually summarized through that. And how do we profile certain schools? Are the schools in certain hot zone areas where prone to juvenile delinquency? So these are the different types of categories that which we need to actually overcome, so that we are able to monitor the situation better, control better.
Is there any outlet for a victim now?
For now, as I know, outlet for victims, one, I have heard cases that they call befrienders or certain hotlines. And there are certain cases where, example, like in Penang, there's this organization called Sneham, where they allow, they receive calls from troubled teenagers who are undergoing stress. And in fact, now they are receiving calls from those being bullied at workplace. So they actually give a space for them to understand better and advise. And which, if it's something related going against law, they are there to support them all the way. So that is one. School counselors. But for me, regardless all these institutions are there, parents plays a very important role.
I was just about to get to that. So what role do parents play?
Parents play very important role. Example, certain questions are very vital in terms of understanding what is happening in their life. Okay, Not saying that I'm a perfect parent, but what I do, I have 5 kids. So even in a family institution itself, without they realize, the elder ones are bullying the younger ones. You see, it happens.
Yeah, sibling rivalry.
Yeah.
My children do that too.
Yes, you see, so everyone goes through that. But for
I
me,
try to be the peacemaker.
exactly. So what happens is now, when you see such situations are happening among siblings, so rather than keeping quiet or siding one person, making sure intervening there and say, this is wrong, this is right, how do you handle the situations? You see, that is where the whole thing starts. That is number one. Second thing, how long do we spend with our children understanding what is happening in school? Just a question of how's life. So sometimes, you get, hey, life is good, I'm okay, everything is good. But the repeated question, if you ask every day, there will be definitely one day, I don't know why I feel a bit bad. You see, these are the prompt that you should do in order to understand better what is happening. Because as they go into teenagers, they are start developing their own identities. What happens is now they will have certain egos among themselves. And sometimes I don't blame. Parents might be, they are perceiving, parents are very strict. So they don't want to open up. So now, we need to create that kind of medium to gain the confidence and to make sure they open up for us to understand better.
Of course.
Yeah. So, example like asking them what's happening and they feel frustrated, or so that can be an early sign of, indirectly, when you ask further and all that, probably someone is actually bullying him for money. He's forced to actually pay all his lunch bill every day in school. We don't know. So this is how being attentive is very important.
Okay.
Yeah. So our role as a parents, it's very crucial in this aspect.
Okay. Now, you have also talked about how you believe that bullying is a medical condition.
Yes.
Can you please elaborate on that? I found that quite hard to stomach, so please tell me.
Because it happens now when you divide them according to victims, perpetrators, and mixed involvement and all that. So example, the clinical effect on that, affecting them psychologically. Those victims, the literature says that they are more prone to be depressed and gone into anxieties, increased feelings of being sad and loneliness, changes in sleeping patterns, changes in eating patterns, loss of interest in activities. So this list goes on. In fact, those who are frequently perpetrating others, there are increased risk of them being abusive to alcohols or substance abuse in adolescents. And, they tend to be more aggressive, vandalizing properties, or school dropouts, engage in early sexual activities.
All this is correlated to bullying.
Correlated to bullying. Because what happens is now, this is how they actually, because as you understand, this bullying practice, right, it affects their social interactions, emotional regulation, and cognitive processing. Because this practice, regardless in their 4 categories, it grooms their personality at that point of time. And at this period of adolescence, when the brain is actively maturing into a more developed mindset, you see, so the right, in Malay they call the acuan tu kena betul. If the acuan is wrong, we are actually producing the wrong type of trait in future. So that's why I'm trying to say that, I'm not trying, I want to emphasize that how important this thing has to be given importance. Yeah.
Now, in this case, when you say it's a medical condition for bullying, are you sort of like giving an exit or to bullies, to basically an excuse for their behavior, when shouldn't we be making them take responsibility for their behavior?
Definitely, yes. I totally agree to that. But now, being an adolescent, the law protects them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now,
does it protect them too much?
Maybe, but rather than the law is protecting them or not, once these people are identified, definitely there will be a way in every schools for them, because teachers know the students better. So now, once these groups are identified, how do we actually probably managing their their identity and all that? How do we rehabilitate them? Are there any rehabilitation measures that is in place? You see, because drug abuse, very clear. The moment they are caught, they have all these pusat tahanans to actually rehabilitate. It's a very objective focused. But here, do we have such kind of environment?
Is that a fault of Malaysian culture that we are slow to respond to things like this?
No,
Because we are not proactive in creating centers, creating options where, for example, the perpetrator can be either sent to correction facilities or stuff like that. We don't have that. We deal with it in a very weird way where it blows up across national news, and then it becomes a fiasco as opposed to solving the problem.
I don't look it in that perspective, but what I could say that is now, in every schools, effort are being placed in terms of making the school better. Yeah, sports excellence, academic excellence, getting into good international competitions for maths and science and all that. Why not? What I feel is, why not the similar efforts the school should put in terms of having their own rehabilitation units, which means that training, students, ambassadors among them to actually stand up for others. How do you protect your peers? Or when there is any issues, how does the school handle such situations?
Could lack of funds be a problem?
Maybe lack of funds, or maybe the teachers are overworked. We don't know.
I'm sure that's also
overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed. And there's always new. I hear from teachers telling me there's always new things coming up.
New things are coming up.
Yeah.
So what happens is now, I'm not saying that this is only for bullying, because this one-stop strategies of such kind of concepts, it can actually address multiple issues together in terms of all other issues like sexual reproductive health or substance abuse, drugs, and everything should be there. Yeah.
What makes a bully?
Bully. Now, we are looking at the perpetrators.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, this can be divided into multiple factors. So now there are, from my literature, when I divided this, so I could actually categorize this into few factors: individual, peer, family, school, and communities.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are these are the main domains. Example, like in individual factors. So those who have low self-controls, those who have very high level of psychosocial distress, the intensity.
Please define that, Doctor.
Okay, psychosocial distress in terms of how stable are they in their emotion, which means that are they frequently being exposed to, extreme conditions at home, which they are unable to cope with, which give them repeated emotional traumas, which definitely will affect their behaviors further in future. Yeah, this kind of situations. It can be even gender. Yeah, being a female, in among them is always considered they are weaker and they are prone to be actually bullied, or even their body mass index being fat, they are always being targeted. Or I'm not saying that we are racist, but slightly darker skins. There are tendency last time, when I was called as kiwi kasut. So you see, usually they tease,
Yeah, I got my fair share of teasing as well. Yeah.
So, but how much are they actually, how much can we actually sustain those teasing? You see, kiwi kasut is quite extreme. Or, in fact, we look at cyberbullying perspective, the duration of media engagement, which means how long per day they are actually accessing handphones or their tablets or any gadgets. The media engagement via online. So
but
this
if
is
that's the case, are you saying that the more that they engage with social media, with tablets, with smart devices, that would mean that in the future we would have more bullies?
No. The more they are involved...
Because now kids, everyone is...
Correct. The more they are involved, the probability of being a victim or being a perpetrator definitely it's high. But what I'm trying to say is now, involving in media is one thing, but involving in media with the right knowledge is the most important. So what I'm trying to say...
And where should this knowledge come from?
From at every institutional level, which means the family, in terms of school. Have we ever been taught on cyber literacy? Which means that, what is cyber literacy? How do you message, with respect? How do you actually comment certain posts in pictures that you see if you don't like this kind of post? How do you message? Third, let's say, you see, in behaviors, right, you can't expect 100% of them to support you for whatever that you post, you see. So definitely there'll be a fair share of them be going against you and a fair share of them supporting you, or 50-50 in between. So now, are they even, their mindset is prepared enough to accept criticism? Because their intention is, when they are too long exposed in media, they want to express themselves without realizing that when you express themselves, there will be people going against you.
So then, should we be like other countries like China and all this, who have very strict social media laws in terms, not of course in China there you have the limiting content and all that, but more in terms of usage. For example, what you're talking about, even for me as an adult, for example, I'm lucky because I think we come from the generation where this social media came when we were able to deal with it.
Exactly.
Because we were adults. Right?
Yes.
We weren't kids.
Yes.
I see kids now who are dealing with social media and I don't think they can deal with all the stuff, right?
Yes.
I give you an example. When I first started this podcast, my first exposure to the world of comments happened when I posted one video on TikTok saying that I'm no longer a Manchester United fan. And the comments was daily. Hatred, right?
Exactly.
And I remember my brother texting me and said, "Are you okay? Like, these comments." But I have this philosophy where I don't get involved in the comments. It's all fun and games, right?
Yeah.
So should we have certain laws for strict laws where children should not have access to social media because it's a demon they cannot battle?
Definitely. You know why? Because you see, like the Singapore Prime Minister has mentioned that at certain age, these are the suggestive airing time that they should access to.
Yeah.
I totally agree to that. You know why? Because media engagement, the intensity of it should increase proportionately as they mature. So, once they mature to a certain extent, you see, with the involvement of AI and all this, when we are not mature enough to even handle simple criticism, it can be comments. What happens when they mock your picture into a naked images and all that?
Yeah. That's happening. Yeah, that's happening.
It's happening, right? So now
Kids are even making money out of it.
exactly. So when that happens, now, if let's say that person has been victimized without unknowingly, now what is the report mechanism and all these things? They don't have that maturity
Yeah,
yet.
nothing. Yeah,
Yes.
I think even at the institutional level, there's no sort of mechanism to deal with that.
Exactly. So you see, probably there might be there, but what I'm trying to say is now I'm still going into the awareness. You see, now if they ask me now, okay, this happened, what do I do? So I can say, okay, either I block the content, report the content. Immediately, the next is I call MCMC, make a report. With the report, I go to the police station and make sure I file it as soon as possible because there's cyber law protecting it. So this sequence, how many people in the country knows this?
Yeah.
How many people
In
knows
fact, I just before this interview, the previous interview I did was with her name is Mediha Mahmood. She's the CEO of the Content Forum, which is under the MCMC.
Yes.
Or I think they work with MCMC. I'm not very clear of their relationship, but anyway. And when I was reading their content code, they have a part where they have a complaints bureau. That means you can complain if you have any issues and all that, individuals and all that, which I had no idea about until now.
Exactly.
So I guess this goes back into your earlier point of awareness.
Yes. Why? For me, I still believe that these ecosystems are there in place. However, I don't know the limitation on, you see, like for me, I'm so intense, I want to know this. For me, family and my surroundings, my community, whoever I engage with, I want to make sure as much as possible, I want to actually share whatever that I know. So I put effort in terms of identifying, locating such things. The recent talks that we organized on mental health, I called the president of Sneham, please come and explain. And then there was a very intense sharing among teenagers who are suffering from sexual issues and all these things where she was shocked and we were able to intervene at the right time. So now, when I actually explore this in detail, I'm able to extract where are the resources of help. But most of them, I realize that they are unsure of what to do because I receive calls. In India, this is happening to my kids. What should I do? Where do I go? So for me, it's okay. They don't know. I teach. But the other part of it is, because they are very professional. They're highly professional in their job and all these things. But the fundamental awareness of these are the avenues which are available. They are unable to actually understand or even realize the existence of it. So now, where do we start? So now, are we going to empower the parents? Are we going to empower stakeholders to make sure that you do more, awareness program? Or are we going to overload the school to make sure that students knows this? So where?
But that goes back to also, I guess again, I don't want to keep doing this, but it seems to bring us back to enforcement, because what you are talking about, Prof, is long-term solutions.
Okay.
But that does not address a kid now who is being bullied in an environment where he feels like how you felt, where if I speak out, I may get bullied worse.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
There are no examples out there of kids who have bullies who are punished. So there's no fear. I'll give you an example. Recently, when the government increased the fines for drunk driving, I know a lot of people personally who are now very afraid of driving when they're drunk.
Exactly.
When they consume alcohol, they actually now use Grab and all that. They're very responsible.
Yes.
Before this, no.
Exactly.
Because you could get away by many ways.
Yes.
So again, it boils down to that, right, Prof? I mean, we should have the short-term, tough. We should make examples of bullies so that to deter others, while we at the background create policies, create the systems and all that.
Which I agree to you. That's where I believe the tribunal, which is going to be tabled, where the formation of anti-bullying tribunal and all that, it's some sort of where that it's a beginning. Which I see there is a hope in this, because once the tribunals are there, probably I don't know into how they are going to manage this, but every independent case of bullying are going to be discussed into this, and actions will be taken, or whether it's in a rehabilitative or punitive measures and all this. So with such kind of tribunals, what happens is now we are able to understand the local bullying culture here itself, because bullying is nothing new. It's an ancient practice.
Yeah. Last time in ragging and all that, in universities and all that.
Ragging in universities and all that. So those days is supposed to be a fun, but now it's getting...
I've heard the ragging. My parents, my goodness,
exactly.
Borders on crime. I tell you.
Exactly. So now that is a beginning actually.
Yeah.
So which means that, and the existing laws which we can use, Child Act, negligence of parents, because we have to empower the parents that it's your responsibility after this. Let's say if the child is being caught bullying others, or it's been proven, and then the parents has fair share of being legally taken action into. Yeah. So these are the ones which I feel we can actually kickstart with as an immediate measure to create, because when such measures are there, the awareness will come in place actually eventually. Then that will give rise to multiple efforts. Because I do see there is a single person in Kedah, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere near Lunas. The father actually writes in a very layman about what is bully, what is happening and all these things. And then what you should do for among the communities. And he sells it. With the money, he reprints the books. So there are these kind of small efforts are being done among themselves.
But it's not on a big scale, serious.
Yes.
With the government body behind it.
Government body behind it. But now, what I feel is probably it's not this has been overlooked. The system is there. It's just that now, as the case becomes more complex, death is involved and all this. Yeah. Now, the tribunals which I have mentioned is now with such system, definitely there will be certain major decisions will be made. Because the main thing is now, when a child is being bullied, okay, whether in school environment or outside now, who are the person who's going to be responsible? Is it Ministry of Education? Or is the police? Or who?
No, I think this is just my personal opinion to your question, is that I don't think we can put, if the policies and guidelines are already there, then we can't fault MOE. Because MOE's job is to come up with the guidelines, right?
Correct.
To come up with policies and all that.
Yes.
Then we should fault the school. It should be the schools, it should be the people involved. Those 4 categories, all of them should be involved, because that will create a fear factor that will stop this. That will at least reduce it, I think, exponentially.
Exactly. But it has to be a multi-sectoral approach.
That will be complex, huh?
Yeah, multi-sectoral approach. Because previously, when I was Penang State Anti-Bullying Chairman, the group which was formed by, at that time, YB Chong Eng, it encompasses those from local city council who played their part, the police, because the local city councils were creating awareness among the communities, the police, people from Jabatan Kebajikan Masyarakat, representative from the school, from Pejabat Pendidikan Daerah. They came up with data explaining to the committee which are the hot schools where we should intervene. And then different categories of NGOs who's been actually assisting in terms of to promote mental health. So when this multi-sectorial group were formed, You see, the expertise came from a different approach. And eventually, that was the first time we did an anti-bullying walk in Beach Street. At that time, Chief Minister, YB Ling Guan Eng, he officiated. It was a 5-kilometer walk, started from Beach Street. Nearly 4,000 to 5,000 people came in. They came, they supported.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah, they supported.
Yeah.
So what happened was, that was the medium which was used. There were two parents, of the children succumbed to the act of bullying. They had an opportunity to explain how they felt and what they went through when the kid was undergoing this. So what I'm trying to say is now, when this multi-sectorial approach was there, but it was an initiative by a state government by itself that this should be combated. So there was an immediate effect. Media was talking about it, and everyone came in, they were committed, and everyone could actually do something part of this. Example, like what can the city council do? City council can put up boards in every community playgrounds and all that you should stop bullying. If you are bullied, these are the hotlines that you should call.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And
You're right, yeah.
Yeah, you see garbage bins are going empty, right?
Yeah.
There should be painting about, how unity is important and you should go against bullying. Messages. Everywhere that people go, the messages are there. But in that messages, it's not about awareness. It's about, if you are bullied, this is the number, dial it now.
Yeah.
Complain. So they can get immediate. Police at that time, they promoted their app. There's an app whereby at the location where they are, I'm unable to name it, I forgot the name. At the location where they are, if they are witnessing any crime, including, bullying, they can report. That app actually connects to the nearest, telecommunication center. It detects your GPS. A police responder is sent immediately to the location.
Wow.
Yeah, there is an app by police. So how do we know this is? The main thing that the committee wanted is to create awareness. So it was a big discussion on how do we going to get the parents. We have to go to every schools and all that. So what I proposed is, okay, look, because YB Chang Weng was very supportive in this, DAP, So what we decided is Komta, 52 floors, okay? I think nearly 36 government agencies are there. All of them are parents. So let's gather them. So what happened is, the letter was sent by her office, from the Chief Minister's office, encouraging all the head of departments of every government agency, federal and state governments, to send their representatives, their staff, periodically for every 30 minutes. So it was sent. So we used the auditorium below. We managed to create the awareness for 3 days, intensively. Every 1 hour, every talk which were given, it was by me to create bullying awareness, the police, and all this. So that's where I realized that there was an app like this. So,
but is the police involved? What is their role in this? Under this topic?
Okay, under this topic, what I'm trying to say is, example like physical bullying. When intensely something is happening, students are with handphones.
Okay.
Yeah. So utilizing such app and communicating, their locations, when you have immediate response, because there are patrol cars and all these things, immediate response, definitely they are there at least to actually break this event from happening. Because, see, this whole punching and all that, if you see an average videos, 2 to 3 minutes, sometimes it takes 5 minutes, multiple people are taking turns to actually attack. Now, how long does a police car takes? Very short period. So at least they are there to, in Malay they say, leraikan the situasi, to control the situation. Then eventually find out what's next. So now, it's an immediate action to making sure that the perpetrator don't continue further doing damages, and also we are saving the victim.
Just to sort of moving forward here, and I want to talk a bit about the victims, right? You are one good example of how a victim can turn his life around, use that as sort of like a stepping stone to what you have achieved. But in your experience, how badly have you seen these kids being affected by being bullied?
Oh, it's quite alarming. You see, why? Because I know friends who has very good academic potentials. Let me focus on academic potential itself. As they were actually into this, bullying, being a victim and all this, what I could see, number one, is they lost their self-esteem. They became even worse. They start self-blaming. That was what I realized during my school days. Okay, self-blaming, the academic performance drop. They start seeing them as worthless because they are not being liked by the community where they wanted to be part of it.
Which is their school area.
Their school or among their peers. Yeah. So because the time cyberbullying was not prevalent, it's just among us. Yeah. So that was the initial thing that I saw. And eventually what happened was, what I realized, the category divided into two. Some of them who underwent this, they want to prove something, they join them eventually to become, what I would say, a criminal, yeah. Because they want to prove something that will be popularized and all. That can be one. Or the second one is, that's it. Eventually, they are unable to perform. SPM was a benchmark. They couldn't perform, and that's it. Jobless.
One of the things that I find shocking that people don't see is that bullying is actually something that starts a sort of like a domino effect. Right? Like as what you say, one bullying case in a school can lead to few people dropping out. That leads to crime, increasing, jail time. All of this has economic impact as well to our country. We can't have a group of people who are not, productive.
Productive, yes.
But now, when you look at the current cases, the popular ones, the cases that are now national headlines, right? What are your thoughts? How do you feel things are being handled? Are they handled the way they're being handled? Do you see light at the end of the tunnel? Do you see change? Do you see chance for a better protocol to come up from this?
Now, I would see this in a perspective that, example, certain highlight cases. What we see from the media that we read, there is this group of people in every academic institution thinks that they rule this place. They are in control. So they expect as new batches come in, these are the younger ones has to actually listen to them because they are in control. Things has to be done according to them. Anything gets stolen or missing, they investigate all this. You see. So, but what I'm trying to say is now, everyone knows this. So for me, I see the light at the end of the tunnel whereby we are able to identify certain student leaders in every group, definitely. Now, for me is grooming these student leaders to be more responsible, understanding what's happening, treating everyone with equal respects and all that, and teaching them of, let's say, if there's any incidents and all that, you should actually responsibly investigate rather than blaming, body shaming or whatever, you see, because they are there every day facing each other. Yeah. So now, these are the aspects which needs some sort of proactive role for us to do, because in many places, it's sad to say, bullying is a tradition. Because what I'm trying to say is, why they say bullying is a tradition, now, they believe that even some fathers like, oh, I was bullied, I was ragged, and eventually I rag others, and you also should be ragged. That's the tradition everyone goes through.
Especially in university. Yeah.
So
thank God now they have really banned it. You can't do it. Yeah.
So where is the logic? Yeah. So now when we carefully observe these cohorts, definitely, because every population falls into the curve of normality. There will be some groups who are very dominant.
Yeah.
There are some groups who are being very less dominant or being very primitive and all this. Yes. So when you see this dominant, how much we can target these dominant groups to make sure that they be, rather than being aggressive unnecessarily, being responsible enough to actually manage the rest of the groups. So it takes time, I'm trying to say, but what happens is now, these are the things that which we can play, but it's not about Ministry of Education, Pejabat Pendidikan Daerah and all this. No. Every school or every family or school should have that proactive role, understanding their own climate, how things are in their own place.
I think at the end of the day, parents should be very involved in their child's education.
Why? Example, like what I do. Even my kindy kids, my kids in preschool, both of them, there is a surveillance system in place whereby I teach them, because there's a book, You Have Got a Bottom. It's a book published in Australia which teaches a child on sexual reproductive health since age 4. So it starts with body respects and all that. It's a bit cartoonish type, very interesting. So when I went through with them this, just to share an situation where when I was talking to them, I managed to identify that someone is actually touching her private part in the school.
Your child?
So we see.
How old?
Preschool. But I took it very, positively, because I managed to understand this. But what happened was...
Sorry, as a parent,
Yeah, so this is the caretaker, because she goes to toilet in school. So now someone has to wash her. So the caretaker is actually washing her. So it's completely normal. But my objective of understanding who is touching her has been met because that kind of interventions that I have made with my kids, I'm able to talk and get information from them. So if, let's say, that particular person was not the caretaker, because in fact, after knowing, then I spoke to the teachers. Teacher, my daughter was saying this and all that. Yeah, I don't know why recently I see her, she's going to toilet very frequent in school. So probably you need to alter something. So we realized that there was other, like the type of food that we give and all that. So she has this bowel irritations, and she's going frequently in school. But the objective has been met. Whoever is touching the private part, I'm able to understand better. I'm able to detect it.
Oh. Yeah.
So which means that these are the level of
girls, is it? Girls?
Yeah, 3 girls.
Same here, buddy.
Yeah. So now that is the level of engagement that you should have. Being busy is not an answer. So let's say if that particular incident, if I know someone is touching, but if it's in a stranger, then you see that is an early intervention before damage is been made.
When you see in news media now, you see how these cases, these bullying cases and all that are being politicized.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that?
Yes.
Is that the right way forward? For instance, when we see certain parties or certain people talking about it, loudly, bringing it into parliament, is that a good thing for this situation?
My sincere opinion, yes. Why? Initially, such topics were never even spoken outside of a school environment. Now, it's been an, I think, so-called national agenda. So, regardless is the opposition or the ruling party, this kind of issues are now in parliament, which means that I believe indirectly there's already a will of actually addressing this as a national agenda.
Okay.
So I believe in so, because once it has gone there, maybe if it subsides because election is coming or whatever, but this will actually get its momentum that what we want. So,
Okay.
yeah. So I believe that, you see, at the end of the day, even when they want to politicize, they are giving their opinions on that, but be responsible on whatever opinions that you give. Do not come out with false rumors and the person was into the washing machine and, this kind of things was, really bad. But however, the points that they see, which I conclude, whatever that they have said is, the main thing is now, I could understand the frustration, the anger of why this is repeatedly happening. So, there's something needs to be done out of this. So now, how? Which means it went to the parliament. So when it went to the parliament, which means that there is a will already that a legislation would be passed, or there is a national agenda, because even the king speaks about it. He has given instruction that please do something about this. So it has attained the supreme most person in this country, the attention of him. So it's very positive for me.
All right. Thank you so much, Prof, for coming on the podcast. I truly enjoyed this conversation. It's hard for me to keep my emotions contained because I'm a parent as well. We are both parents, so this topic is something that, especially when you have young kids, it's a very passionate topic that really concerns us. But guys, that was Professor Dr. S. Vikneswaran. Now, before I go, I just want to say that I think to best sum up this conversation, I think Prof is coming from the angle of more policy implementations and more long-term planning. I came from the angle of let's just punish everyone. So you tell us which one you prefer. Do you think we need short-term enforcement, stronger, harsher enforcement, or do we need long-term plans, or perhaps we need both? Share your opinions in the comment section and let's have an interesting discussion and continue this discussion to make our schools safer for our children. Now, before I go, one last thing, I'll just like to highlight that Professor, he is someone who was bullied. We had a conversation before this interview several weeks ago, I think, and he shared his story of how he was bullied. He doesn't want to share it now, but then he was bullied. But the thing I want to highlight is how he has turned his life around and become an extremely successful individual. He was part of the government working in the MOH,
Yes.
MOH, right? Ministry of Health. He started his own company. He's a very, very well-respected man. He was a gold medal student at UKM.
Yeah.
And he's a super intelligent guy, and I'm very proud of that. and very proud to see, as I said, an Indian doing so well. So well done to him. So for those of you all who are currently facing any issues in this, if you guys feel like you guys are being bullied, or you have certain thoughts or certain problems you want to share, please get the help that you need. Connect with the right people. We'll be sharing some links in the description of this video. So if you guys who happen to watch this, or you know someone going through this, connect with these people and get the help that you need. Speak up and don't hide behind the shadows, and make your life better. So thank you so much, Prof.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. So guys, again, we'll be back with more interesting interviews. Again, please like, share, subscribe. Have a good night. We'll see you soon. Bye.